Now, there was a piece in the Irish Examiner yesterday from journalist Tina Brown, and Tina spent much of her career focusing on Princess Diana and wrote extensively about the late Prince of Wales and her life. And she posed the question, what would her life have been like if Diana survived in 1997? If she was alive today, she would celebrate her 50th birthday. And Tina observes that she would be a stunning 50-year-old. That's a given, because her mother, Frances Shand Kidd, had her cornflower blue eyes, her striding sexuality. She was a very handsome woman right to the very end, and Diana, no doubt, would have inherited that, and she probably would have styled herself along the lines that Michelle Obama does today. Tina also reckons Princess Diana would have had 10 million followers on Twitter by now, that she would still be championing her causes. And as far as remarriage is concerned, at least 2, Tina suspects, probably on both sides of the Atlantic. And she would have become exasperated with Dodi Al-Fayed's hopeless unreliability not too long after 1997. Politically, she would have been very much at home, Tina suspects, with David Cameron and all the Etonians who now run Britain. And in her later years, her best male friend would have been her first husband. So Charles would have come back into the picture. The only slight question mark there is, how would the whole relationship have panned out with Camilla being so firmly entrenched in the mix? But then she always was, wasn't she? Now, we received an email from Michelle in Abbeyleix, and we decided to call Michelle because, Michelle, this is a big day for you, isn't it?
It is, yeah, to think of Diana on her 50th birthday, yeah.
You are a big, big Diana fan. Where did it begin?
It began in 1981 when Charles and Diana got married, and somebody gave me a book. I was about 12 or 13, I think, and a book on the royal wedding. And I started collecting books, and anyone who went to England would bring me back a book or a symbol or anything to do with Diana. And in 1988, I moved to London to do my nurse training, and Diana happened to be going to a ballet down the road, and I stood outside and I couldn't believe that I could actually see her, you know. That
and how close did you get, Michelle?
Well, I shook her hands and we had a chat, and I did that for another 37 or 38 times until 1997.
And when you say you had a chat, I presume it was an exchange of pleasantries, but what was she like?
She was great. She was very down to earth. I mean, she loved meeting the people, and there was actually a group of about 10 or 12 of us who she would see pretty much all the time. You know, I wasn't the only lunatic that went to all Diana's engagements, you know, or as many as possible. But and
eventually, did she come to recognise you?
Oh gosh, yeah. And I mean, she knew I was, you know, she'd say, "What do you do?" or "How come you're off? You're not working today?" You know, and I'd say, "Well, I'm a nurse. I'm off today," and blah blah blah. And she'd ask, "Where do you work?" And obviously, she copped I was Irish, you know, and she'd say things, "Oh, don't lose the accent, you know, it's lovely," and that kind of thing. And she'd talk about William and Harry and what they were up to, and yeah, she was lovely.
And she knew you as Michelle, did she?
She did. She wouldn't know me as Michelle, no. You know, she just knew I was the Irish nurse. You're here again, kind of thing. You know,
we didn't get on a first name basis. How did you address her?
Diana.
Diana,
yeah, just Diana. Yeah. I think we were supposed to call her Ma'am, but none of us ever did.
And she obviously didn't care.
No, she didn't. Not at all. And I mean, I can remember actually seeing her at the Savoy on her 30th birthday, 20 years ago. And there was a huge crowd, and she got loads of presents, and some of us gave her photographs that we'd taken of her or of William and Harry, and framed them and wrapped them, and you know, she was delighted with all that kind of thing. But she didn't really like her birthdays, and she didn't really like the fuss that went on, particularly for her 30th birthday, and of course she never saw her 40th either.
And how did she express that?
Well, you know, when she arrived at that engagement on her 30th birthday, it was, you know, more media than usual and all that sort of thing. And, you know, you could tell when Diana wasn't that into being, you know, photographed by so many media. She'd actually come away from them and come more towards us and that kind of stuff. But they had plans to have like a band outside of the Royal Irish Guards or whatever playing Happy Birthday, and she didn't want that. And there was a cake inside. Phil Collins was actually at that engagement as well, inside the Savoy, and they had a big birthday cake for her, and there was a children's charity, and she let the children blow out the candles and, you know, all that kind of thing. And apparently at the time in the media it was reported that Charles wanted to have a big party for her, and she wouldn't hear of it. Mind you, they were barely on speaking terms, I'd say, at that stage anyway, you know. But yeah, so
she didn't really encourage so much of the attention that she inevitably courted. It was her image that led to the paparazzi following her around rather than her seeking it.
Yeah, but I think definitely, you know, once her and Charles had officially separated, I think she certainly did use the media, you know, in her war with Charles, you know, especially in the early days of the separation. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, you know, it all came out after that she had collaborated with Andrew Morton in his book, and, you know, that was really sensational at the time. So
could you see a change in her approach then over the 38 odd occasions that you met her?
Yeah, and you certainly knew. I can remember seeing her off, it was been around the time Fergie and Andrew separated, and you could tell she was, you know, she wasn't engaging very much with the crowd, and, you know, she could tell she wasn't in the best of humour, put it that way. And the next day the announcement was made that Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had separated, and, you know, you could kind of tell what humour she was in, you know. And if she wasn't in great humour, she wouldn't come over near any of us, you know, she'd just get in the car and she'd be gone. And I mean, you know, I lived in Cheltenham the last few years, or Gloucester the last few years I was in England, so I would have travelled down to London, you know, and literally just saw her get into the car and drive off. Like, great, thanks.
Yeah, that was a bit of a deflator.
Yeah, standing there with my bunch of flowers, you know, and she'd be gone. But yeah,
it didn't happen often, though, I assume, did it?
No, it didn't. No, in fairness, it didn't. And the last time I saw her was at the Royal Albert Hall, and she was at Swan Lake, the ballet, and they've become very famous photographs. She was in a little blue dress, and she was absolutely gorgeous. And it was after her first holiday abroad with Dodie Fayed, I think, and she really looked, you know, she was really coming into her own, I think, at that stage, you know. And I think her landmine thing would have been a big project for her, and, you know, she would have taken it very far, I'd say. And, you know,
having a look at some of the photos you sent me, so are these pictures you were able to take yourself?
Yeah, there's one or two with me with her, actually, that obviously my friends or whatever took.
Yeah, I see one here. There's a policewoman in the background, and there's a guy in a tux, and Diana is clutching, I think she has a small bouquet of flowers. And there's a lady there wearing blue. Is that you?
That's me.
Yeah. Right up close to her there.
Yeah.
And did she pose for one or two of these?
She posed for one. She's looking directly in the camera. That's the only time I ever asked her, you know, can I take a photo? And, you know, she posed for a second. And that is my favourite photo. I love that one of her.
Yeah, it is lovely. She's remarkably photogenic, though, isn't she?
Remarkably, yeah. And she was actually, you know, she was absolutely beautiful. You know, photographs don't even do her justice. She was absolutely beautiful, and she had huge charisma. You know, and I think even people who weren't remotely interested in her, if people were passing whatever event she was at, you know, they'd want to know, well, why are all the police here? What's going on? And someone would say, oh, Diana's inside doing an engagement. They'd hang around and wait just to see if they could see her, you know.
Yes, but you can even sense the gravitas when you look at the images and how she holds herself, how she interacts, how she engages. It's a gift. Some people have it and others don't.
Yeah, and she had it in spades now. She really did, you know.
So what would she have been like today, do you suspect?
Oh, gosh knows. I'd say she would have definitely embraced the media age, you know, the social networking and all that sort of thing. I don't know, do I buy Tina Brown's theory about her being married twice and Charles being her best friend? I really couldn't see that. But, I mean, who knows, you know? I don't know, but I'd say she'd still be as beautiful as she was.
Yeah, I think that's in a more mature kind of way. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I saw her mother once, and I mean, she was a very, very handsome lady. There's no doubt about it. But neither of her sisters are.
Oh.
Surprisingly enough, they're not. You know.
Well, I've heard many ladies remark that Earl Spencer wouldn't exactly be a catch.
Well, I met Earl Spencer at Allstroff, and I had a chat with him, and my friends were telling him I'd met Diana, and he is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, is he? All right.
He's lovely. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, he's all right.
Would you be as enamoured with him these days, given all that he has done?
No.
Didn't think so.
No, he's no Diana, put it that way, you know. But he's a good-looking guy.
So do you still follow the royals, Michelle?
I do. Now, I wouldn't be as interested. I mean, geez, I'm much older now and I have children and, you don't have time for all that kind of thing.
But would you have taken an interest in the royal wedding back in April?
Well, I took the day off and we had champagne and, half the neighbourhood was in.
Doing that.
Yeah. So, I would. And, I would. And, I mean, I'm watching now every day, watching Catherine and William in Canada and the Queen opening Parliament in Scotland today. So, I would keep up to date with what they're doing. And I suppose I'm still tempted to buy Hello magazine when any of them are on the front of it, Well,
I think us Irish have more affection for the royal family than we care to admit at times. Because just even a slight observation that I made here in the studio, and I have a view out to the newsroom, and there's a television in the newsroom, and people generally walk past it and pay no heed. But on 2 occasions in 6 years, people have ground to a halt and stared at it. And they were both in the last couple of months. The first was for the royal wedding, and the second time was when Queen Elizabeth came to Ireland and she had all of her different engagements to attend. Yeah. And whether people care to admit it or not, I think we have a fascination and at times, and I think now an affection after the Queen's visit. I think more people would feel warmly towards the royal family than they did before.
I totally agree. I mean, I work as a community nurse here in Laois, and, when I was going around doing my calls when the Queen was over here, every house I went into, they were all glued to the Queen's visit and admiring her and thought she was great. And, it's different. It's different now, There's none of that kind of, in general, on the whole, there's none of that kind of animosity.
No, and long may it continue, please God.
Please God,
Michelle, thanks for taking our call today.
Not at all. Thanks, Will.
Michelle Dunican from Abbeyleix.